Hello everybody, welcome to the Reino method. Here is where I explain some of the main concepts of my method of teaching English. I teach English to driven professionals, high achievers, or anybody who's ambitious enough to be ready to really change the way they speak the language, really improve their fluency, their pronunciation. I like to work with people that are ready to take action and to really put some effort in becoming a more fluent, a more professional English speaker. Because that's what I did in my life and that's how I obtained results. So I like to share with you the things that I did and the things that I learned along the way that helped me obtain such amazing results with the language. I am not naturally bilingual. I speak English as a second language just like you. I didn't grow up in the United States. I didn't grow up in an English-speaking country. As a matter of fact, nobody in my family speaks English like that, only me. So what I'm saying is that it is possible for adults or for someone who didn't grow up in an English-speaking culture to speak very good English. That's the whole point of this channel. That's the whole point of my LinkedIn account that you should follow. Look for Joao-Reino on LinkedIn. Then you will find me, or just look for the Reino method. I've always been a big lover, a big admirer of the language, of the English language. So the fact that I enjoyed it so much helped me achieve the great results that I did in my life. I started off as someone who didn't speak English. Then I learned the language. Then I became a teacher of English in my country. Then I became an interpreter. I worked as an interpreter and translator for many years. Then I was able to become a diplomatic officer from my government. I was a diplomatic officer for 15 years. I was posted in Iraq, Tokyo, Malaysia, Kuala Lumpur, and finally Los Angeles. And then in Los Angeles, I felt the calling to do this that I'm doing right now. And I decided to take a leave from my work to dedicate myself to spread the word, spread the way I've learned the language. Because what I see out there is that a lot of people that are studying the language, they have the right intentions. They want to master the language. They want to become really good at it. But they hit some emotional and mental obstacles. And very often they think that studying more grammar, taking more lessons, going to this different course or getting this certification or that certification will help that. Well, all of those things help, but in different ways. They help you build your grammar foundation, but they do not help you to become a more articulate. They do not help you become a more articulate speaker. They do not help you overcome the mental and the emotional obstacles of speaking English as a second language and living in the United States, because there are many obstacles. There are many challenges, I'd say. When you move to a different country and you have to adapt to a new culture, sometimes your culture is very different to American culture, so it can be really hard to show up fully the way you would like to show up. And what happens when you don't show up fully? You're not perceived at the same level of authority, at the same level of intelligence that you are in your home country. So what I help people do, I help people overcome these challenges and access a way to express themselves so they are recognized and seen in the United States with the same level of expertise they're seen in their home country. You know, there is this story I always tell my students about it. I was talking to this lady, this Brazilian lady. I'm Brazilian as well. And she was telling me how she, at her workplace, she decided to apply to a better position inside the company. And then she applied for the position. And then one of her coworkers, a native speaker in the United States, an American, came up to her and said, "Oh, I'm glad you applied, but that position is only for people with degrees." Well, this lady, she has a degree, she has an MBA, and she was really, it really hurt her that he thought she didn't have an MBA. He thought she didn't have a degree. Why did he think that? Because of the way she spoke the language. And that is an assumption that sometimes locals can make about us. They might think that we do not hold degrees, or that we're not as advanced in our skills as we actually are. Sometimes locals might think that we do not have the level of expertise that we actually do just because of the way we speak the language. This lady, she was taken aback, she was very sad, disappointed, and she's very frustrated because of that. That's something that we need to work to overcome. Unfortunately, for non-native speakers, sometimes we need to do a little bit more work to be seen the way we would like to be seen. And that's okay. We decided to move to a different culture. And of course, there's a barrier there. There's something to be learned. There's something to be overcome in order for us to be able to fully show up the way that culture accepts us. And I'm not talking about changing ourselves. I'm talking about just learning the skills and learning how the system works so you can use it in your favor. Okay, so today I want to talk about a LinkedIn post I made recently in which I use the phrase, if you can survive being misunderstood, you become dangerous. What do I mean by that? In the language context, in the ESL context, I mean literally misunderstood. You say something and people don't understand you, either because of your choice of words or because of your accent not being the standard accent. So it's very common, of course, we all have been through that. We express ourselves and people don't understand what we said. Sometimes it's just a word, sometimes it's the whole phrase. And for some of us, this can have a huge emotional impact. Why? Because when we move to a different country, our self-awareness, our level of self-consciousness is a lot higher than it is in our home country. In our home country, if we say something, the listener doesn't understand what you're saying and say, pardon me, what? We just repeat what we said. We just repeat what we said with no emotional toll whatsoever. However, when we are in a different country, we feel self-conscious. We feel sometimes that we do not belong. We feel that we might not be accepted as we are accepted in our home country. So when someone doesn't understand us, it's a whole different ball game. This can have a serious emotional impact on some of us, depending on how you take it. I'm speaking to those of you who have felt that emotional tension of when you say something and people go, what? Especially it's something that's happened often in your life. So when you're able to develop the resilience to not be affected by this, that's when you become dangerous. There are two types of work you need to do here. Of course, we ESL speakers, we need to always improve our language, improve our accent, improve our pronunciation. Not our accent, but our pronunciation, our fluency. On the other hand, we also need to work on our self-worth, on our sense of self-worth, because we are more vulnerable, we are more fragile when we are in a different culture. We feel sometimes that we're not accepted, so that might affect our sense of self-worth. So when someone says, what? Pardon me, and when this happens often, it can affect our own sense of self-worth. So my first suggestion for you to deal with these moments and to develop that resilience is to develop your sense of self-worth, of self-love, self-acceptance. When we move to a different country, whether we want it or not, we go into a journey of personal growth, of personal development. There is so much going on, and we are so much more self-conscious, self-aware of our own limitations, that we have to deal with these things head on. We have to deal with all of our insecurities. Many of them come up when you're living in a different country. You have to deal with the sense of not belonging. You have to deal with being judged by other people. Why? Because, well, we're judged all the time. This is just human nature. We are judged and we judge people all the time. But when we are living in a different country, these moments, they become more impactful. Why? Because we are making an effort to become part of something that we weren't a part of. This is something new. So my first suggestion to you is to develop your sense of self-worth and to understand that how well you speak the language has nothing to do with your value, with your worth. And remember, you already speak another language. You are already belong to a different culture. So you are already a badass because you're trying to speak a second language. You're trying to become part, to belong to a different culture from you. And this is harder than it looks. This is harder than it seems. Feeling confident, feeling comfortable, having your nervous system regulated in a different culture than yours, it is a lot harder than it looks. Immigrant life is not easy, but it brings a lot of power when you learn how to deal with all these hurdles and challenges. It brings a lot of power in self-esteem and self-confidence. The second thing I would like to say that could help you navigate these situations is, have you heard about the 4 agreements? It's Toltec wisdom. I don't remember the name of the person who wrote the book, but there's a book called The 4 Agreements. And these agreements are excellent. They are pretty much rules of life that you can take anywhere, and they can be very useful and when dealing with other people. My wife, she has a group of women online that she created, and the 4 agreements are the basis of this group, of all the discussions. And one, I'm not going to say the 4 agreements here. This is maybe a topic for another video. But one of the agreements is, don't take anything personally. I would say out of the 4 agreements, this is the most important for us who are ESL speakers in the United States. Don't take anything personally. People sometimes will misunderstand you. People will judge you. People will keep you out of the loop, out of the circle, because you are the newcomer. You are the different one, and there is no denying that. So these things will happen, maybe more, maybe less, depending where you are, depending what kind of group of people you're trying to be a part of. But the thing is, don't take anything personally. The more personally you take things, the more hurtful it will be. Remember, those people are making those decisions from their perspectives. So it's important to put ourselves in their shoes and understanding that those things are just automatic reactions, that they are not evil people. They're not mean. They're just taking it, it's just an automatic reaction to something that's different, something that is not what they're used to. And I'm talking about the language context, but this works in any other context, even in your home country. You know, if you go from a group of friends to a different group of friends, you're going to face some challenges to fit in, to mingle in. You don't even need to fit in, but just to be a part of, to be accepted by that community. You know, this is normal. If you go from one city to another city, it happens in your own country. If you change the way you dress, people are going to be a little, why is he dressing like that now and not that other way? So these are just normal things. And my tip for you, my suggestion for you, my invitation to you is, do not take anything personally. This is the basis of this phrase. This phrase just means don't take anything personally. This is a superpower. Suggestion number 3, don't try to be perfect. Perfectionism does not generate connection. You might even be able to become almost perfect, but that doesn't mean you will be able to connect better. You might even be able to be 100% understood, but that does not mean connection necessarily. Let me tell you a story. When I was learning English, I was obsessed with vocabulary. I was obsessed with everything. And I remember buying a book, and I started buying a vocabulary book, and I started studying new words. And then I started using more sophisticated words. I added more sophisticated words to my vocabulary. In one of the times that I lived in the United States, I noticed that, not only with me, but with other people as well, that when foreigners were speaking to natives and were using very sophisticated words or vocabulary or idioms, very often the natives themselves didn't feel comfortable with that person or didn't even know what those words meant. So what I'm trying to say is, very often when we try to sound too sophisticated, too smart, too knowledgeable, we generate disconnection. I'm not telling you to play yourself down. I'm telling you that trying to sound too smart is not necessarily, or too perfect, does not necessarily bring connection. You know, it can be interpreted as arrogance or as someone who does not know the code. There's a book called The 48 Laws of Power, and one of the laws, I don't remember which one, of course, but one of the laws is, don't try to sound smarter than your boss if you're trying to get something from them. Don't try to sound smarter than everyone else in the room if you're negotiating with them. Connection is more important than perfection. That doesn't mean you're supposed to sound stupid. That's not what I'm trying to say. But trying too hard to sound too sophisticated than everyone else around you does not necessarily bring connection. Perfectionism is not connection. Perfectionism, nobody likes to talk to a robot. What really connects people is vulnerability, authenticity. So the more authentic you are and the more vulnerable to a certain extent, that's what's going to bring connection. I always tell that to my students. So it's okay to tell people, to ask people to repeat what they said. It's okay to tell people that you don't understand a certain word. All of these things are okay. Okay, these were some of the things that I had to say about this. I hope you enjoyed. I hope they made sense to you, and you can start practicing them right now. And it's been great to have you here. So these were my suggestions for today. If I think of something else, I'll make another video. I hope these are useful to you. You can start applying them right now at your workplace or wherever you use the language. It's been a pleasure to have you here. Subscribe, come back, all the things. Have a great day.